even if occasionally I do have to spend a bit of money on it. So slightly boomy at the moment because there's a slight issue with the exhaust.
Hello and welcome back to Automotive Tales. As you'll have seen on the last episode with the Renault Clio, it's starting to sound a little bit grumbly. The exhaust is well and truly shot. So we have taken the plunge and bought ourselves a KTEC Racing stainless steel exhaust system for the Clio. So let's go and take our little Renault Sport up to the garage and get the system fitted. Right, well, we are back home with the Clio, and on reviewing some of the footage when we first left the garage, something that we didn't immediately notice at the time is that seems to sit very, very low. Now, as I understand it, the KTEC Stealth system is supposed to, like the standard 172, tuck right up under the bumper here. It's actually a Piper exhaust, I believe, that was designed for KTEC. And I actually managed to find the person who designed the exhaust originally for Piper, and he confirmed that you should not be able to see the back box at all. So there's a huge cavity behind here where the original back box used to sit, which is this dirty, great big rusty hunk of a thing. And you can see it's a fairly similar size. There's the outlet, so it drops down, and the rest of the box then sits up in that cavity on this little mount here. So on closer inspection, it would appear, let's see if I can get the camera to go up and under, that this is sitting way too low. There's a good sort of fist's width worth of space above this. However, it seems to be sitting on its mount, which I'm not sure I'll be able to catch on camera. Oh, it's flipped, there we go. Just up there, in roughly the right place. So my suspicion is that hanger is actually upside down. And while inspecting it, I've also noticed that hanger mount has got a cable tie around it with a bolt in, which appears to be stabilising what's left of a very rotten bush. So looks like that needs replacing and that mount needs fixing. Now, I'm somewhat unimpressed with a garage leaving it like this, so I'm probably going to do that myself so I can make sure it is just so. So check back in, well, for you probably a few moments, but in me for a week or two when I've got the new parts. We will change that bracket out and we will sort this dangly exhaust pipe, which really shouldn't be dangly. I'm slightly concerned actually that if it's much lower, it might hit that cross member if we go over a large bump. So it really does need rectifying and really isn't okay. It's a never-ending story with this car. Well, it's more than a few weeks later, but it's finally time to fix the dangly exhaust back box on the Clio. So we have a brand new bracket to put on, amongst a few of the bits and pieces we're going to do. So we're going to jack the exhaust up, take the bracket and the hanger off, flip the hanger round, put the new bracket onto that little piece that sticks out, and hopefully that KTEC Stealth exhaust is going to fit right up behind the bumper where it should be to live up to its Stealth name. And then we can actually go out and drive it properly without worrying about the exhaust clattering on the rear subframe, the rear beam for that back axle, because it sits very, very close when it's hanging low. So, finally getting to sort the Clio at last. Woohoo! You'll also notice I'm on my own. I've been allowed to take the Clio to a workshop on my own, which means I'm going to be able to drive it on my own. Thanks, Mrs. Automotive Tales. I'll be very careful with it, I promise. Right, well, this is the fending article. So this is the exhaust mount that bolts to the underside of the car, and that's where the exhaust hanger goes through. You can see there's not an awful lot to this. This is really, really thin here. So the support is really just these two pieces here. And if that's perished over time, it's not a surprise that's collapsed. So that should be dead easy. Looks like it's just 3 bolts. That doesn't look like a bolt hole. And the other thing we're fitting is a new battery mount, or battery support clip bracket thing. The one that's in there didn't look like it was the original one, and it's been displaced in the various battery changing that we've done over the years. So we've got a nice new one, and some some no nonsense penetrating oil, because apparently WD-40 is nonsense, who knows, just to get those bolts lubricated, because they all look nice and rusty on the footage. And we've got the trusty impact gun on charge, because I think we're probably going to need it for the bolts on this to get them off. Doesn't look like they've moved for a little while. Right, let's get to it. That was a little bit more tricky and involved than I anticipated. First things first is I realised I'd forgot to bring my 1/2 inch to 3/8 adapter that I needed for the star key. So the 3 bolts that hold the bracket on are this lovely little, let me get the right size for you, there we go, T40 star key. So I got those off with the little Tommy bar and the ratchet. In the end, that wasn't too much of a problem. And then the bracket, it transpires, has a little thread in the end, which is obviously to stop it sliding out of its bracket on the car, out of the rubber mount. That was done up incredibly tight, and I wasn't expecting, obviously because the bracket was upside down, this was facing the wrong way, so it was a bit more difficult to access than it should have been. And then we finally got the whole thing off. You can see the state of that, and the very ingenuitive use of a nut and a cable tie. But hopefully we can fix this properly now. The only thing I'm going to have a challenge with is getting the bolt off that holds this bracket together. Was really very, very difficult. I couldn't get it high enough up to actually get the impact gun on, but I suspect one had been used before, because this is a really tight fit around the exhaust back box. And once the nut was released, it sprung open quite a lot, so I'm going to probably need to use, I don't know, mole grips maybe to, vice grips, to use the right word. Derek wouldn't be impressed with us calling them mole grips. Some vice grips to hold it together while I get the bolt in, and then tighten that down. That's going to be quite difficult with just hand tools, because that was incredibly tight. So that would all be fine if it wasn't nearly 30 degrees today. It is a sweaty job, but we were soon to have the exhaust hung the proper way and not sticking out underneath like it is now. It's basically how it was hanging on the car, which is ridiculous. It should be propped up completely out of the way. Right, back to it. Right, well, another little joy of this job is not realising quite how bad the heat shield above the exhaust is. So it started to crumble here, and the way it's attached is it's essentially clamped underneath that big bracket. So when this is clamped up underneath the car, in fact you can see the remnants of the heat shield on there, it's basically held in position by the bolts that go through here. It's just sort of wedged underneath, and it's basically corroded all the way along this edge where it then sticks out, returns and comes up and over the box. The actual heat shield itself is okay, it's just that very edge is a bit crumbly. So we're probably going to have to order a new one, but I need to get the thing back together for now. So I fabricated up from a piece of bracketry that was lying around. Just a little piece that will sit underneath here and will just go over that edge slightly and help to hold that heat shield in place. I think it will just about stay put as it is, but I don't want it to start flapping around randomly at high speed. So I'm hoping this little piece of fabricated bracketry, whatever you wish to call it, bodgery, will just help hold the heat shield in place for now until we can source a new one. So another little fun part of the job I wasn't expecting. Right, back to it. Well, it's in. We've got 1, 2, 3 of the star keys in. I've just got to put the little flange nut back on the front of here to hold it in place. You can see it's all nicely clamped over here. You can also see my little additional bit here just to help hold that heat shield in. So that's nicely clamped underneath the bracket now. So the next thing to do is to release the jack, which is beneath this piece of cardboard, and see how it looks. So the exhaust is done, and from down here you can just about see the tip of the exhaust there, which is much more stealthy than it hanging down somewhere near the floor as it was before. So the next thing we're going to be on with is under the bonnet. Righto, here we are under the bonnet of the Clio. There's one thing that stands out to me that if you're a Clio owner you'll be familiar with. This little attention sticker to remind you to close the bonnet properly. I've not seen this on any other car. I'm sure most of you will be familiar with the issue these cars have, is that occasionally the bonnet catch will let go. So you're supposed to maintain it frequently. So you can see ours has got some nice red rubber grease on there, because you've got a rubber part on the mating side here. This was replaced a year or so ago with an original Renault part, just to be sure, because what seems to happen is when these start to fail, you get corrosion on the springs, or you get corrosion in the actual mechanism down here. It doesn't latch properly, and then at speed the bonnet will come off its latch and then ping backwards and hit the roof, smash the windscreen, write the car off. So we'd rather that didn't happen. Anywho, that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about the battery. So this has got, it's a proper 54 ampere hour, 500 cold cranking amp battery. It's not the proper Bosch one it should have from the factory, because I had to get what I could get off the shelf at Halfords. But it's a decent UASA battery. We've had lots of things in here over the years because it likes to flatten its battery, because we don't use this car anything like as much as we should. But what we're here to do today is try and, well, you can't really see it on the camera because it's in the depths of there. There should be a clamp that holds this battery in. At the moment it's a little bit loose. The battery clamp was lost in amongst the different batteries we've had in here over the years. So we're going to get that out and see if we can fit it. While we're here, if you do happen to have a Renault Sport like we do, I would highly recommend going and seeing Mick at Diamond Motors. He's looked after this car for years and he's done wonders on it, transformed it from when we first bought it. Somebody had done a cam belt but hadn't got the proper Renault tools, and what a difference it makes when the cam belt is set just so. Right, anyway, enough waffling, on with the battery clamp. Right, so this is the part we are fitting. It's a battery clamp that fits down there. Nice little touch by Renault, because it's such a tight fit down here in the 2-litre engine bay. There's a little, like a retaining clip. It's only a little piece of plastic, like a little washer, but it just means that that bolt doesn't fall off, and likewise the bracket doesn't fall off. That's going to make putting this together a whole lot easier. so I realised I had to remove the battery to do the job, but while it's out you can see where the mount clamp is supposed to go. This is where the battery sits, and there's a little hook here for the edge of the battery to go under. The reason I had to take it out is because it still had these little adapter pieces in. So there's two different types of battery clamp, and these little adapters go into the holes along the front of here, so you can remove them or leave them in depending on the type of clamp you've got. But I'd forgotten to remove those before I fitted the battery last time, and so the clamp wouldn't go on. So battery's out, adapters are off. Time to actually put it back together properly now. Done, back in, battery clamp in, nice and solid. A little bit fiddly, mainly because I got the battery in the wrong way around first of all, and then trying to get it back out of the space between these bits is not easy, not when it's 30 degrees at least anyway. Right, time to go for a drive.